My daughter shamed me. I gave my granddaughter a locket with my will's key. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I remember the smell of her hair when she was a child. Apple shampoo, cheap but sweet, the kind I could afford on my seamstress wages. I would braid her hair every morning before school, my fingers working through the tangles while she sat on the wooden stool in our tiny kitchen. She would chatter about her dreams, about becoming someone important, someone who mattered. I never told her she already mattered. To me, she was everything. My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I am 73 years old. This is the story of how my daughter learned to be ashamed of me and how I taught her the final lesson about pride. Robert left when Sarah was 2. I came home from the textile factory one evening to find half the closet empty and a note on the kitchen table. I can't do this anymore. No explanation, no apology, no forwarding address. Just those 6 words and the echo of the door closing behind him. I held Sarah that night, rocking her in the darkness of our bedroom, listening to the radiator clank and hiss. She didn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. I didn't understand either, not really, but I made a promise to her sleeping form, to her tiny fingers curled against my chest. I would give her everything. I would be enough for both of us. The years that followed were a blur of double shifts and sacrifice. I worked at the garment factory during the day, took in alterations at night. My fingers were always pricked with needles, always stained with thread dye. I learned to sew wedding dresses for other women while wearing the same 3 dresses myself, rotated and mended until the fabric grew thin as paper. Sarah never went without. She had new school clothes every September, even if I wore my winter coat through 3 seasons. She had piano lessons, even if I skipped lunch to pay for them. She had birthday parties with store-bought cakes, even if I celebrated my own birthdays alone with a single candle stuck in yesterday's bread. I was proud of her. God, I was so proud. She excelled in school, my brilliant girl. Straight A's, honor roll, college scholarship. She was the first in our family to get a university degree. I sat in the audience at her graduation, wearing my best dress, the navy one I'd sewn myself, with the careful invisible seams, and I wept. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming knowledge that I had done it. I had kept my promise. Sarah met Marcus during her final year of university. He came from money, old money, the kind that whispers rather than shouts. His family owned real estate, investments, things I barely understood. But he was kind to her, and he was kind to me during those early years, and I thought that was enough. They married in a hotel ballroom with crystal chandeliers and roses flown in from Ecuador. I wore a dress I'd made for the occasion, pearl gray silk that had taken me 3 months of evening work to afford and construct. Sarah had offered to buy me something, but I'd refused. I wanted to walk into that ballroom as myself, carrying my own dignity. Marcus's mother, Patricia, had looked at my dress with an expression I couldn't quite read. "How charming," she'd said. "Did you make that yourself?" "I did," I'd answered, lifting my chin. "How resourceful." The word hung in the air like smoke. For a while we were happy. Sarah and Marcus bought a house in the suburbs, and I visited every Sunday for dinner. I would bring homemade pineapple, cherry, lemon meringue, whatever fruit was in season, and we would sit in their gleaming kitchen and talk about everything and nothing. Then Emma was born. My granddaughter entered the world on a Tuesday morning in May, 6 pounds and 7 ounces of perfection. I was in the delivery room when she arrived, holding Sarah's hand, wiping her forehead, whispering the same encouragements my own mother had whispered to me decades before. When they placed Emma in my arms, I felt time collapse. She had Sarah's eyes, my mother's nose, and a grip that was entirely her own. She wrapped her tiny fingers around my thumb and held on, and I was lost. "Mom," Sarah had whispered from the hospital bed, exhausted and radiant. "Thank you for being here." "Always," I'd promised. "Always." I kept that promise, too. For the first 3 years of Emma's life, I was there every day. Sarah had returned to her career in marketing, and while they could afford a nanny, she'd asked me instead. "I trust you, Mom. I want Emma to know her grandmother." So I cared for Emma. I fed her pureed carrots and sweet potatoes, read her books about hungry caterpillars and runaway bunnies, taught her to count in English, and a little bit in the Italian I'd learned from my own grandmother. We spent our days in the park, at the library, in the kitchen, where I taught her to stir cookie dough with a wooden spoon almost as big as she was. Those were the happiest years of my later life. Emma would run to me when I arrived each morning, her arms outstretched, calling "Nonna, Nonna," even though I'd never asked her to call me that. Sarah said she'd picked it up from an Italian family at her playgroup. I didn't correct her. I loved it. But children grow and situations change, and somewhere along the way, things began to shift. It started small. Suggestions, really, barely noticeable at first. "Mom, maybe you could wear something a little more modern when you pick Emma up from preschool? Mom, the other mothers are all doing organic snacks. Could you maybe not bring those homemade cookies? They have sugar." "Mom, I know you mean well, but the way you talk, some of Marcus's colleagues are coming over. Could you maybe be a little more refined?" Refined. That word stuck in my throat like a bone. I began to notice how Sarah would tense when I spoke at dinner parties. How she would quickly redirect conversation if I mentioned my factory days, my seamstress work, the neighborhood where I still lived in my small but tidy apartment. How she would introduce me to her friends with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is my mother, Eleanor." Never my mom. Never with pride or warmth. Just a statement of biological fact. Emma started kindergarten, and Sarah hired a nanny. "You've done so much, Mom. You deserve a break." But I saw the truth in the careful distance she maintained. I was no longer needed daily. I became a Sunday grandmother, then an every other Sunday grandmother, then a "we'll call you" grandmother. I tried to adapt. I bought new clothes from the department store, simple but respectable pieces that strained my pension. I practiced speaking more carefully, avoiding the colloquialisms from my childhood, the working-class phrases that Sarah now seemed to find embarrassing. I brought store-bought wine instead of homemade pie. But it was never enough. I could see it in her eyes, in the way she looked at me, the way Patricia had looked at my wedding dress. How charming, how resourceful, how embarrassing. Marcus, to his credit, never treated me differently. He would hug me when I arrived, ask about my week, include me in conversations. But I could see the tension it created, the subtle ways Sarah would signal her displeasure when he showed me too much attention or respect. And Emma, my sweet Emma, was caught in the middle. She would still run to me, still climb into my lap to show me her drawings and tell me about school. But I noticed how Sarah would sometimes redirect her. "Emma, Nonna is tired. Why don't you show Daddy instead?" I wasn't tired. I was never tired when it came to Emma. The truth I didn't want to face was this. My daughter had grown ashamed of where she came from, and by extension, she had grown ashamed of me. The invitation arrived in early October, heavy cream cardstock with embossed gold lettering. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Sarah Hayes Morrison's promotion to Senior Vice President." A party, a celebration of Sarah's success, hosted at their home with catering and champagne, and all the colleagues and friends who mattered in her new world. I held the invitation for a long time, running my fingers over the raised letters. Senior Vice President. My daughter had climbed so high, so far from where we'd started. I should have felt nothing but pride. Instead, I felt a cold knot of dread. I almost didn't go. I crafted excuses in my mind. A headache, a prior commitment, a sudden illness. But Emma called me 3 days before the party, her voice bright with excitement. "Nonna, you're coming to Mommy's party, right? I'm going to wear my blue dress and help pass out appetizers. Please come. How could I say no to that voice, that hope? So I went. I chose my outfit carefully. A simple black dress, elegant but not flashy, paired with the pearl necklace my mother had given me on my wedding day. I had my hair done at the salon, a modest style that felt appropriate for a woman my age. I looked in the mirror before I left and saw a respectable, dignified elderly woman. I thought I looked nice. I was wrong. Their house was transformed. White lights strung through the garden, a pianist playing jazz standards in the corner of the living room, waiters in black tie circulating with trays of champagne and canapes I couldn't pronounce. The air smelled of expensive perfume and ambition. I arrived early, hoping for a moment alone with Sarah before the crowd descended. She answered the door in a designer dress, her hair swept up, her makeup perfect. "Mom," she said, and I heard it immediately, the hesitation, the assessment, the faint disappointment. "You're here." Of course. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Congratulations, sweetheart. I moved to embrace her, but she stepped back slightly, glancing behind me as if checking whether anyone had seen. "You look nice," she said, though her eyes lingered on my dress, my shoes, my hair, finding flaws I couldn't see. Emma saved the moment, bursting through from the kitchen in her blue dress. "Nonna!" She crashed into my arms, and I held her tight, breathing in her sunshine scent. "You look beautiful, my darling," I whispered. "So do you, Nonna. I love your pearls. They were my mother's, your great-grandmother's. One day, they'll be yours." "Emma, honey, why don't you help Daddy in the kitchen?" Sarah's voice was controlled, but firm. Emma hesitated, looking between us, but she obeyed. As she left, she blew me a kiss. I caught it and pressed it to my heart, our little ritual. "Mom, listen," Sarah said, her voice dropping. "There are going to be some very important people here tonight. Marcus's partners, my colleagues, some potential clients. I need this evening to go perfectly." "Of course, I understand. Do you?" Her eyes met mine, and I saw something there I'd never seen before, not just embarrassment, but resentment. Because sometimes you talk about things that aren't really appropriate for these situations. What things? You know, the factory, your old neighborhood, that time you brought up your seamstress work when Marcus's mother was here. These people, they don't relate to that. The words hit me like a slap. "I see. You want me to pretend I'm someone I'm not. I want you to understand that this is my world now. This is who I am. And who am I, Sarah?" She looked away. "You're my mother, but that doesn't mean—" She stopped, shook her head. "Just please, Mom. Please just blend in tonight. Don't embarrass me." Don't embarrass her. Those words would echo in my mind for weeks to come, but in that moment, I simply nodded. "I'll do my best." The guests began to arrive, and I retreated to a corner of the living room, a glass of champagne I barely touched in my hand. I watched Sarah work the room, brilliant and confident, laughing at jokes and commanding attention. Marcus stood beside her, proud and supportive. I felt invisible, and perhaps that was the point. For 2 hours, I made small talk with strangers who forgot my name as soon as I said it. I nibbled on fancy food that didn't fill me up. I smiled until my face hurt, and I waited for the moment when I could leave without causing a scene. But then Patricia Morrison arrived. Marcus's mother swept in like visiting royalty, air-kissing Sarah, complimenting the decor, holding court among the guests. I tried to avoid her, but our eyes met across the room, and she made her way toward me with the inevitability of a hunting bird spotting prey. "Eleanor, how unexpected to see you here." "It's my daughter's celebration. Why wouldn't I be here?" "Oh, of course." I simply meant, well, these corporate events can be so tedious for people who aren't in the business world. I'm sure you'd rather be at home with your knitting or your television programs. I felt my spine stiffen. I'm exactly where I want to be, Patricia. Celebrating my daughter's success. Such success indeed. Her eyes traveled over me, assessing, cataloging. That's an interesting dress. Vintage, is it? It's several years old, yes. How economical. Marcus tells me you still live in that little apartment downtown. Have you ever considered moving somewhere more suitable? Perhaps one of those nice senior communities? Before I could respond, Sarah appeared at my elbow. I felt a flash of relief. Surely she would defend me, redirect her mother-in-law's pointed comments. Patricia, how wonderful that you could make it. Sarah's voice was bright, brittle. I see you found my mother. Yes, we were just chatting about Eleanor's living situation. I was suggesting she might be more comfortable in a retirement community. Sarah's laugh was forced. Oh, Mom is very independent. Aren't you, Mom? The way she said it, as if my independence was a quirk, a stubborn refusal to accept help rather than a source of pride. More guests joined our circle. One of Marcus's business partners, a woman named Victoria with sharp eyes and sharper cheekbones. Sarah's new boss, a silver-haired man named Richard. A young couple who worked in Sarah's department. The conversation flowed around me. Corporate strategy, market trends, vacation homes and investment portfolios. I stood there, silent, until Victoria turned to me with a polite smile. And what do you do, Eleanor? It was a simple question, an opening, an invitation to participate. I'm retired now, I said, but I worked as a seamstress for many years. I made clothes, did alterations, that sort of thing. I saw Sarah tense beside me. How interesting, Victoria said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. A seamstress. How quaint. Actually, I found it quite fulfilling. I made Sarah's prom dress, her graduation dress, even her... Mom. Sarah's voice cut through mine like scissors through thread. I don't think anyone here needs to hear about that. The group went quiet. I turned to look at my daughter. I'm sorry? Her face was flushed, her smile frozen. It's not really relevant to the conversation. We were talking about current events, business matters. I was simply answering Victoria's question. Yes, but... Sarah glanced around at the watching faces. Look, Mom, nobody here really cares about sewing or whatever. It's such an old-fashioned profession. It's not like you were a businesswoman or a professional. The words hung in the air. The pianist had stopped playing. Conversations nearby had paused. I see, I said quietly. So what I did for a living, what I did to raise you, to pay for your education, to give you everything that's something to be ashamed of? That's not what I said. Isn't it? Patricia let out a small, uncomfortable laugh. Well, this is awkward. Sarah's face went from flushed to pale. When she spoke again, her voice was louder than necessary, as if she was performing for the audience that had gathered. You know what, Mom? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You always do this. You always make everything about you, about your struggles, about how hard you had it. This is my night, my achievement. For once, can you just not? I felt something crack inside my chest. I was answering a question, Sarah. No, you were making people uncomfortable. You were bringing up your past, your working-class background, as if it's something to be proud of, when really... She stopped, but the words were already out. When really what? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw everything. Embarrassment, resentment, the desperate need to distance herself from where she came from who I was. When really, it's just a reminder that we didn't. She shook her head. You don't understand this world, Mom. You never will. And I'm tired of having to explain you to people. I'm tired of apologizing for your clothes, your stories, your ordinariness. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud as thunder in my ears. Emma appeared then, pushing through the crowd of adults. She'd been in the kitchen, away from this moment, this destruction. But now she was here, looking up at me with worried eyes. "Nonna? Why is everyone quiet?" I knelt down, my joints protesting, and cupped her face in my hands. "It's okay, sweetheart. Nonna just needs to go home now." "But you just got here." "I know, but sometimes—" I looked up at Sarah, at the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for, who was now looking at me with something like relief that I was leaving. "Sometimes we stay too long at parties. Sometimes we forget where we're welcome." I kissed Emma's forehead, stood, and walked through the crowd toward the door. No one tried to stop me. Sarah didn't call out. Marcus started to say something, but I shook my head. As I walked out into the October night, I heard the conversations resume behind me, the party flowing back into place like water around a stone, filling in the space where I'd been as if I'd never been there at all. I drove home in silence. I didn't cry. Not yet. I sat in my apartment for 3 days before I made the decision. The apartment was quiet in a way it had never been before. Even though I lived alone, there had always been the anticipation of visits, phone calls, the sound of Emma's laughter in my memory. Now there was just silence, thick and heavy as wool. Sarah didn't call, didn't text, didn't apologize. On the 3rd day, I received a message from Emma. Sarah must have helped her send it, though the words were clearly Emma's. "I miss you, Nonna. When can I see you? I love you." I stared at that message for a long time. I love you. The most important words in any language, and they came from my granddaughter, not my daughter. That night, I got up and went to my bedroom closet. On the top shelf, hidden behind old shoeboxes and photo albums, was a lockbox I hadn't opened in years. Inside was my will, my insurance papers, my deed to the apartment, and the information for my savings account, modest, but accumulated through decades of careful living. I had always planned to leave everything to Sarah. She was my only child, my greatest achievement. It seemed natural, obvious. But as I sat on my bed, reading through the old documents, I realized something. Sarah didn't need my money. She and Marcus were wealthy in ways I'd never been. My modest savings, my small apartment. These things would be pocket change to them. Sarah would probably sell the apartment without even looking through it, donate my belongings, erase the evidence of my ordinary life. But Emma was only 8 years old. She was at the beginning of her life, full of potential and promise. And more than that, she loved me. Not despite my ordinariness, but perhaps because of it. She loved my stories, my cookies, the way I spoke and dressed and existed in the world. She wasn't ashamed of me. I pulled out my laptop, yes, I had one, despite Sarah's assumption that I was technologically helpless, and began researching. I spent hours reading about trusts, estates, legal documents. I made calls to lawyers, asked questions, took notes. By the end of the week, I had a plan. I met with a lawyer named Mrs. Chen, a kind woman in her 50s, who listened to my story without judgment. "Are you sure about this?" she asked me, after I'd explained what I wanted to do. "This will effectively disinherit your daughter." "My daughter has everything she needs. My granddaughter. I want her to have something from me. Something that can't be discounted or dismissed. Something that will remind her that ordinary love, working-class love, is worth more than all the champagne and canapes in the world." Mrs. Chen smiled. "I think I understand. Let me draft the documents." The new will was simple. Everything I owned, my apartment, my savings, my belongings, my mother's pearls, would go into a trust for Emma, to be released to her when she turned 25. There was a letter attached, sealed, to be given to her at the same time. For Sarah, I left one thing, the Bible my mother had given me, with an inscription on the first page. Not to be cruel, but so she would have something. Something to remind her of where she came from, even if she chose to forget. The will was signed, witnessed, and locked in a safe deposit box at the bank. Mrs. Chen gave me 2 keys to the box. I kept one. The other I had plans for. I took the bus downtown to the jewelry district, to a small shop I'd passed 1,000 times, but never entered. The owner was an elderly man with magnifying glasses perched on his forehead. "I need a locket," I told him. "Something small, delicate, but sturdy. Something that can hold a key." He showed me several options. Most were too ornate, too flashy. But then he brought out a simple silver locket, oval-shaped, with a subtle pattern of engraved flowers on the front. "This one," I said immediately. "Good choice. Victorian style, but modern make. Very durable. For your granddaughter?" "Yes. How did you know?" He smiled. "I've been doing this a long time. I know the look of love when I see it." He made adjustments, creating a small velvet-lined space inside that would hold the bank key perfectly. The locket closed with a satisfying click, secure but not too tight. When I picked it up 3 days later, he'd also engraved the back, though I hadn't asked for it. "Love never fails." "No charge for that," he said when I tried to pay extra. "Some things need to be said." I cried on the bus ride home, the locket clutched in my hand. I called Sarah for the first time since the party. My hands shook as I dialed. "Mom!" Her voice was neutral, careful. "Hello, Sarah. I was wondering if I could take Emma for ice cream this Saturday. If that's all right with you." A pause. "I suppose that would be fine. I'll have Marcus drop her off at your apartment at 2. "Thank you." Another pause. "Mom, about the party. We don't need to discuss it." "I think we do. I may have been harsh." May have been. Not I was. Not I'm sorry. "It's fine, Sarah. I understand. You've moved on to bigger things, better things." That's not what I meant." "I know exactly what you meant. I'll see Emma on Saturday." I hung up before she could respond. Saturday arrived gray and cool, autumn settling into its deepest colors. Emma burst into my apartment like a sunbeam, chattering about school and her friends and a story she was writing. We went to the ice cream shop on the corner, the one with the creaky floors and the hand-painted signs. Emma ordered chocolate chip cookie dough. I ordered vanilla, like always. We sat by the window, and I watched her eat, savoring every spoonful, getting ice cream on her nose. She was still young enough to find joy in simple things. I wondered how long that would last, when she would learn to be ashamed of chocolate chip cookie dough, of creaky floors, of ordinary grandmothers. "Nonna, are you okay?" Emma asked, setting down her spoon. "You look sad." "Not sad, sweetheart, just thinking." "About what?" "About how much I love you." She grinned, showing ice cream-stained teeth. "I love you too, Nonna, more than anything." "Emma, I have something for you, an early birthday present." "But my birthday isn't until March." "I know, but this is special. I want you to have it now." I pulled out the small velvet box from my purse. Emma's eyes went wide. She opened it slowly, carefully, and gasped when she saw the locket. "Nonna, it's beautiful." "Turn it over." She read the inscription aloud. "Love never fails." "That's from the Bible, right? You used to read that to me." "Yes, it's from 1 Corinthians. It's one of my favorite verses." I took the locket and fastened it around her neck. "This locket is very special, Emma. Inside is a key." "A key to what?" "That's a secret. But one day, when you're older, when you're 25, you'll use this key to open something important. Something I'm leaving for you." She touched the locket, puzzled but intrigued. "What is it?" "You'll see. When the time comes, you'll understand everything. But Emma, I need you to promise me something." "Anything, Nonna." "Promise me you'll keep this locket safe. Wear it. Take care of it. Never lose it. And promise me that no matter what anyone says, no matter what happens, you'll remember that your Nonna loved you, that I was proud of you, that you come from strong, ordinary people who worked hard and loved harder." Her young face was serious. "I promise, Nonna." "And one more thing." I leaned forward, taking her hands. "When you grow up, when you become successful, and you will, my darling, you have your mother's intelligence and your great-grandmother's strength, Don't forget where you came from. Don't be ashamed of the people who loved you when you were small. Success means nothing if you lose your kindness along the way. I won't forget, she whispered. I could never forget you. I kissed her forehead, breathing in her scent, memorizing this moment. I know you won't, sweetheart. That's why the key is yours. When Marcus came to pick her up, Emma ran to show him the locket. He admired it, looked at me with questions in his eyes that I didn't answer. It's beautiful, Eleanor. Very thoughtful. She's my granddaughter. She deserves beautiful things. After they left, I stood at my window and watched them drive away. Emma turned and waved at me from the back seat, the locket catching the light. I waved back, and I smiled. The months that followed were quiet. Sarah called occasionally, brief conversations that skimmed the surface of things. How are you? Fine. Emma's doing well in school. That's wonderful. Okay then, goodbye. She never apologized. Not really. There were half-hearted attempts. I know things got tense at the party, or maybe I could have been more diplomatic, but never the words I needed to hear. Never acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused. I saw Emma when I could, though the visits became less frequent. Sarah was always busy, Emma had activities, schedules were complicated, but when we did see each other, Emma would show me her locket, still wearing it faithfully. I never take it off, Nonna, she told me once. Not even for swimming. Good girl. I began to prepare for the inevitable. I cleaned out my apartment, sorting through a lifetime of accumulated belongings. I found Sarah's baby clothes, her school projects, photos of her smiling gap-toothed smile. I found my own mother's things recipes, written in shaking handwriting, the apron she'd worn every day, letters tied with string. I packaged these memories carefully, labeled them for Emma. One day, she would want to know these stories. One day, she would understand that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account or their job title, but by the love they leave behind. I wrote the letter that would accompany my will. It took me 3 weeks to get it right. So many drafts, so many tears, so many moments where I almost changed my mind. But I didn't change my mind. The letter was sealed, added to the safe deposit box, and the box was locked. The key hung around my granddaughter's neck, and she wore it like the treasure it was. I was ready. I never intended for anyone to read this letter except Emma, but I'm writing it down here, in this confession, because the truth needs to be told. The full truth, not just the parts that are comfortable or convenient. This is what I wrote. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I hope I had many more years with you, years where I watched you grow into the remarkable woman I know you'll become. But life doesn't always give us as much time as we want. By now, you've opened the safe deposit box with the key from your locket. You've seen the will, the documents, the explanation from Mrs. Chen about the trust. You probably have questions. Maybe you're confused, maybe you're upset. Maybe your mother is very, very angry. Let me tell you a story, Emma. It's the story of a girl born into poverty who worked every day of her life, who raised a daughter alone, who sacrificed everything to give that daughter opportunities she never had. It's the story of how that daughter succeeded, climbed high, built a beautiful life, and it's the story of how that daughter learned to be ashamed of the woman who made it all possible. Your mother isn't a bad person, Emma. I need you to understand that. She's ambitious, driven, intelligent, all the things I wanted her to be. But somewhere along the way, she forgot something important. She forgot that dignity doesn't come from designer dresses or impressive job titles. She forgot that the hands that sewed clothes were the same hands that held her when she cried, that fed her when she was hungry, that applauded every achievement. She forgot that love can come from working-class women with cheap clothes and unfashionable words. The night of her promotion party, your mother made it clear that I was an embarrassment to her, that my ordinary life, my simple ways, were things to be hidden, apologized for, dismissed. She told me, in front of her important friends, that I didn't belong in her world. She was right. I don't belong in that world. but not because I'm not good enough. Because that world has forgotten what really matters. This money, this apartment, these belongings, they're not much. Compared to what your mother has, they're practically nothing. But they represent a lifetime of work, of choices, of love. And I'm giving them to you because you, my darling girl, understood something your mother forgot. You understood that a person's worth isn't determined by their zip code or their wardrobe. You understood that stories about sewing and factories and struggling are stories of strength, not shame. You understood that I loved you, and you loved me back, without conditions or embarrassment. Use this money for your education, for your dreams, for building a life that would make your great-grandmother proud. But more importantly, remember the lesson in this gift. Never be ashamed of where you come from. Never look down on people who work with their hands, who speak plainly, who live modestly. Never trade kindness for status or love for approval. Success is meaningless if you lose your humanity in the pursuit of it. Your mother will be hurt by this decision. I don't make it lightly. But sometimes, Emma, people need to learn that actions have consequences, that the people we take for granted won't always be there, that pride and shame come at a price. I hope that one day your mother will understand why I did this. I hope she'll realize that I didn't take anything away from her. I simply gave to you what you valued, and she didn't. My love, my legacy, my ordinary, working-class, unfashionable, embarrassing life. You'll be 25 when you read this. A young woman, maybe just starting your career, maybe already succeeding wildly. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, I hope you still wear the locket. I hope you remember ice cream on Saturday afternoons. I hope you remember that your Nona loved you more than anything in this world. And I hope you remember that love never fails. Not the love of grandmothers, not the love of seamstresses, not the love of ordinary women who gave everything they had. I didn't disinherit your mother out of spite, Emma. I did it out of hope. Hope that she might learn, someday, to value what really matters. Hope that you might be the kind of person who already knows. The money is yours. The apartment is yours. The stories and memories and lessons are yours. Use them well. Be better than we were. But never forget who we were. All my love, always, your Nona, Eleanor. I am 73 years old, and I am at peace. I don't know when the end will come for me, tomorrow or in 10 years. But when it does, I'll go knowing that I made the right choice. The key hangs around Emma's neck. She wears it every day, this child who loves her grandmother without shame or condition. She doesn't know yet what it unlocks. She doesn't know that inside that safe deposit box is her future, her inheritance, her grandmother's final act of love and justice. But she will know. When she's 25, when she's grown and wise and ready, she'll slide that key into the lock and everything will be revealed. And Sarah? My daughter will learn the hardest lesson of all, that the people we dismiss, the love we take for granted, the ordinary sacrifices we're ashamed of, these are the things that matter most. And by the time we realize it, sometimes it's too late to say thank you, too late to say I'm sorry, too late to say I love you. I didn't take anything from Sarah that she valued. She has her career, her house, her status, her place in the world she chose. I simply gave to Emma what Sarah threw away, a working-class woman's love, dignity, and the fruits of a lifetime of labor. Some might call this revenge. I call it justice. I call it a lesson about pride and shame and the true measure of success. I call it love. Epilogue. 17 years later, I want to imagine the moment, though I won't be there to see it. Emma is 25 now, a young woman with her grandmother's strength and her mother's intelligence. She's done well for herself. Perhaps she's a teacher, or a lawyer, or a doctor. Perhaps she runs her own business, or works for a nonprofit, or writes books. Whatever she does, I hope she does it with kindness. She still wears the locket. It's become a part of her, this silver oval with its secret weight. She's worn it through high school graduations and college finals, through first loves and heartbreaks, through all the moments that make up a young life. She's thought about the key 1,000 times, wondered what it opens. But she's kept her promise to her Nonna. She's waited. And now, on her 25th birthday, she goes to the bank. The manager escorts her to the safe deposit room. She slides the key into the lock, the key that's hung around her neck for 17 years, and turns it. The box opens. Inside, she finds documents. A will. A letter with her name on it, in shaking handwriting. Legal papers explaining a trust, an inheritance, an apartment full of memories. She finds photographs of a young woman in a factory, hands rough with work, eyes fierce with determination. She finds recipes written in careful script. She finds baby clothes and school reports, and a pearl necklace that belonged to her great-great-grandmother. She finds a lifetime of love, carefully preserved and gifted to her by a woman who knew that someday she would understand. Emma sits in that bank room and reads the letter. She cries. She understands. And when she leaves the bank, she goes to find her mother. Sarah is older now, too. 52, perhaps, still successful, still climbing. Maybe she's divorced from Marcus, or maybe they're still together. Maybe she's mellowed with age, or maybe she's grown harder. I can't know, but I imagine the conversation. Mom, we need to talk about Nonna. Sarah, uncomfortable, defensive. What about her? She left me everything. Her apartment, her savings, her belongings, everything. Sarah's face carefully controlled. I see. Did you know? No, she never told me. Did you ever wonder why? Silence. Mom, I read her letter. I know what happened at your promotion party. I know what you said to her. Emma, that was 17 years ago. I don't remember. You told her she embarrassed you. You told her she was ordinary. You made her feel ashamed for being exactly who she was, the woman who sacrificed everything for you. Sarah, perhaps angry now, perhaps crying. You don't understand what it was like. I worked so hard to get where I was. I couldn't have her reminding everyone where I came from. Where we came from, Mom. Where we both came from. And you know what? Nonna wasn't ashamed of it. You were. I gave her a good life. I helped her financially. She didn't want your money, Mom. She wanted your respect, your love. She wanted you to be proud of her, the way she was always proud of you. The silence that follows is long and heavy. Emma continues, softer now. She left you something too, a Bible, your grandmother's Bible. Inside, there's an inscription. It says, To Sarah with love. Remember where you came from and who loved you first. Perhaps Sarah breaks then. Perhaps she finally understands what she lost, what she threw away in her pursuit of status and respectability. Perhaps she realizes that her mother's greatest gift wasn't money or property, but a lesson about what truly matters. Or perhaps she doesn't. Perhaps she's angry, feels slighted, threatened to contest the will. Perhaps she never learns. But Emma learns. Emma understands. And that, I think, is enough. Because Emma will carry forward the real inheritance, not the money or the apartment, but the values. The understanding that dignity comes from within, not from designer labels or job titles. The knowledge that love given freely, without shame or condition, is the most valuable thing in the world. Emma will marry someday, perhaps. She'll have children, perhaps. And she'll tell them about their great-grandmother, the seamstress who raised a daughter alone, who worked until her fingers bled, who loved fiercely and completely, and asked for nothing but respect in return. She'll tell them that greatness doesn't require wealth or status, that the hands that sew clothes are as worthy of honor as the hands that sign contracts, that ordinary lives, lived with dignity and love, are extraordinary, and she'll pass down the locket, the key to a legacy that transcends money. That's what I hope for as I sit here in my small apartment, writing this confession. That's the future I'm choosing when I sign those papers and place that key in the Locket's secret chamber. I'm not punishing my daughter, I'm teaching her, and I'm rewarding my granddaughter, who understood what Sarah forgot. That love, real love, never asks you to be ashamed of where you came from. They say that in the end, we're judged not by what we accumulated, but by what we gave. Not by our successes, but by our kindnesses. not by how high we climbed, but by who we helped along the way. I spent my life giving. I gave my youth to hard work, my middle years to raising a daughter, my later years to loving a granddaughter. I gave until there was almost nothing left to give. And when my daughter asked me to give one more thing, my dignity, my self-respect, my right to exist without shame, I finally said no. This is my last gift. A key in a locket, a letter in a box, a lesson about love and pride, and the true measure of a person's worth. I hope Sarah forgives me someday. I hope she understands that I did this not out of cruelty, but out of a desperate hope that she might learn what I tried so hard to teach her, that there is no shame in ordinary love. I hope Emma treasures what I've left her, not the material things, but the memories, the values, the unshakable knowledge that she came from strong women who loved without condition. And I hope that somewhere, somehow, this story reminds someone that their mother, their grandmother, their seamstress, their factory worker, their ordinary, unfashionable, working-class parent deserves respect, deserves love, deserves to be honored, not hidden. We are not embarrassments. We are foundations. We are not shameful pasts. We are proud histories. We are not ordinary. We are extraordinary in the ways that truly matter. This is my confession. This is my story. This is my last will and testament, written not in legal language, but in the plain words of a working woman who spent her life loving a daughter who learned to be ashamed of her. I gave my daughter everything. In the end, I gave my granddaughter what mattered most: the truth. The key is in the locket. The locket is around Emma's neck, and I am at peace.